Hi, I'm Susannah Fellows, Chair of Bucks Art Weeks. I'm outside this fantastic house to meet 3 members and exhibitors who have something special in common. Hi! Thank you. Rosa, thank you very much for having us in your beautiful studio. We have Elaine Wells, Potter, Rosa Wiland, Holmes, and Peter White. Now, you're all members of Bucks Art Weeks. Yay! First of all, I'd like to ask, why ceramics? What brought you to ceramics, above all else? Elaine.
We'd always done crafts in our house, knitting, sewing, crocheting, all that sort of thing. My father encouraged us and did it with us. But it was a television programme from the early 70s, The Craft of the Potter with Mick Casson. And it was many years later till I was able to sort of start it, but I'd always wanted to do ceramics. And then once you started doing it, you hooked.
Rosa, what about you?
Yes, so my dad was actually a sculptor, but he didn't pursue sort of the artist route. He had a normal sort of day job. But I think there was always sort of clay in our house, and he did jewelry and he wrote some books as well. So I think sort of being creative as well, growing up was really good. And I was never really that good in school, so I always pursued the sort of creative thing. And then I went into fashion, and I had a fashion clothes brand that was called Little Duckling, where I did children's clothes for 5 years, and I had my little children at the same time. And I thought it would be sort of easier to do something else. So I closed the company down and did a bit of freelance for other people. So then we decided to move to the countryside, and I bought my potter wheel and a kiln straight away.
And how long ago was that?
That's about 6 years ago now. Right. But I think the main thing was that I did a free class with Westminster Ed Education with Anne Silverton for three classes it was, and I just loved it. I loved the organic thing of it. I loved that it can be perfect or imperfect. It can be anything you want, and you can fix anything. And if you can't fix it, you can redo it. You know, it's just so nice. It's not right and wrong. It's just art, isn't it?
Yes.
So yes.
Peter, what about you?
Oh right, so it's a total anomaly. I come from a family of engineers, midwives and nurses, and they thought that's probably the way I'd go. But I'd always been passionate about it. I was always drawing, I was always making, and I sort of got a little bit of an introduction to clay at school. So I sort of had that little inkling. So when I left engineering, I started an engineering company, and we designed and prototyped children's toys. So I had the engineering side, but I had the passion for the creative. So my factory and my office, my design studio was always full of children's toys and things like that. So then I had the opportunity to sell the company and move on. I didn't know what to do, so I decided to go back to university. Right. And I chose to go and do ceramics. Well, it was 3D design, but ceramics was a big part of it. Yes. And then, recently I decided to retire. And build a studio at home, a little tiny studio on my driveway. So,
did you apply for the Great Pottery Throw Down? How do you get involved?
Yes, I saw an advert for it.
An advert.
And I don't know why I did it. I don't know why I applied. I didn't tell anybody that I'd applied. I went through all the process, all the interviews, everything, and didn't tell my family, nobody. And I had to tell my husband in the end, because I'd actually got all the way through, and they offered me a place. How many
kind of auditions were there?
I think there was about four or five.
Yeah, there's quite a lot, isn't it?
There were quite a few auditions, yes. Yeah. And every time you went to an audition, there were people that dropped off the end and more moved up.
Yes.
It was very exciting and such fun. We go to London and all have throw together. We'd all throw in a big room. It was really fun.
What about you, Rosa?
I watched the first programme and I absolutely loved it. And then I actually I applied for the one where Elaine was in, but to be honest, it was really good I didn't go any further because I think I could just about throw a cup at that stage. It wouldn't have been that good. So I went through the first 2 auditions with that, and I met some of the other ones when I was at the audition. So I went back, and then when your program was on, every week they will have sort of a competition of what to do, and I would do it at home.
Excellent.
So I have a fountain out in the garden that I did when they did the fountain, and so I sort of tried to copy everything, but of course like at home. So and I didn't do sort of the toilet and other things, but I sort of chose what I wanted to do. So when it came on again after the long break, I was really excited. So I actually got my friend. I'm really bad at writing and spelling for that matter, but I got my friend Shelley to come around and said, I just need to fill this form in. And it's not just a form, is it? It's like... It's
20 pages.
It's loads more. It's like 20 pages. He was like, we were sitting for hours filling this form in. And then every time I sort of get hooked back and I passed another, I was like, how did it go? Oh, I'm through this one as well.
How exciting. Peter, what about you?
Well, it's well, I keep saying we because my wife is she's keen on it. So
that's nice.
So in 2019, I first applied. I went through all the interviews mainly on by the phone because I didn't have a studio, didn't have anywhere to throw or anything like that. But I knew the process, and I had to go for an interview. And then they said on this interview, "Are you available in this period of time?" It was one of our bucket list Route 66 trips. So we said, no, we're away for 5 weeks. So then the following year, I said to my wife, Jill, I said, look, you know, I'm going to retire. I want to be creative. I want to go to a studio. So she said, oh, come on, apply for it. Let's do it. So I said, this is absolutely bonkers. I can't compete. I can't throw. You know,
and you became a finalist.
Tell me. And of course, then, you know, like Elaine and Rosa, I went through all the interviews. Except we had to do skill tests. Did you have to do skill tests?
Yeah, we went through and then build.
And I did mine in my garage. And we had an extension lead. We borrowed a potter's wheel. And Darryl was doing this, and I said to everybody, this is it, like, you know, game over. And then next thing you know, everyone said, hey, are you available?
Oh,
I said,
fantastic.
What for? And I went, for the show, we'd like to go on the show. I said, well, I don't like being in front of cameras at all, and now I'm on a show, you know. So, and then I thought, well, you know, with my skills, I'll probably be out first week, so it doesn't matter anyway. But then, of course, I wasn't, which is fantastic.
Can you tell me what you brought away with you when you, having done the experience? Was there any technique that you particularly carried forward, or something you observed that you brought into your work, which now carries on from this point?
For me, it was the donuts. I'd never thrown a donut. I mean, we had to watch Keith throw a donut, and then we had to throw a certain number of donuts in a certain time. And I loved that. And then when I went to Clay College, of course, then I made loads of pots out of these donuts. It was the most fascinating thing ever. That was terrible, throwing donuts.
What about you, Rosa?
So I think because as a potter you're normally on your own, and I sort of thought my work was quite marvellous as it was, but but then I went on this show and I realised it was really bad. And I remember the first day we got in there, I normally have my bats with some holes in and I just put them on. And they were saying, oh no, you have to sort of, I know you would have called the corby, you put this clay on and then you put your bat on there, and I'd never done that. So when we were standing outside 2 minutes before we walked in, one of them told me how to do it. So I did that. So that I learned how to do that. And I think another thing I learned was the constant reminding about turning, because I don't really like turning at all.
No, me neither.
But Keith constantly looking at the bottoms of the pots. We want to look at the bottom of the pot anyway. So now I am turning and looking at the pot from any angle. So I learned perfectionism sort of. A little bit sort of. I like my pots to be a bit organic, so they're not that perfect. Keith will probably not approve of them, but I think they are organic and feminine and themselves.
And here we are drinking tea out of your...
Yes. These are the test ones, the ones that was done before the show.
Right. Fantastic.
So it's lovely. Isn't it?
Peter, what about you? What did you? I mean, yours is so, for us, so recent. What have you kind of maintained, kept in you artistically that you now feed into your work?
Do you know what? It's a strange thing, isn't it? It's like you know, I'm a reasonably confident person, but not necessarily. I don't like anything I make, anything I paint, anything I do. So anything I make, you know, I make from like industrial lights or children's toys or whatever. I've always given away or passed on. And I think that for the show, you know, I respected at the time that I was probably the least able out of everybody, but I was quite creative. And I think that's sort of what got me through. But I suppose just having the confidence to have a go.
Yes.
I suppose my biggest nightmare was making a 16-piece tea service for this doll's house, and then Keith saying, "Oh, that's too small," and I went, "Really?" You know, and then she warned, going, "Really? You didn't give a size?" And he went, "That's too small." And I thought, do you know what? They're not too small. They are balanced for that. And I thought, you know, if you want to start getting technical, you know, and I thought, do you know what? It's just being the whole thing made me come alive.
Fantastic.
Made me have a go. You know, I learnt to throw.
Yeah.
I learnt to take the opposite to Rosa. My stuff is quite masculine, and I always try and avoid it because I love this amorphic thing. I love, you know, everything everybody does. But when I'm looking at my work there, it's all shoulders and strong and dark and heavy. But I kind of like it as well.
It may seem like a silly question, but what do you consider yourselves to be? Are you makers or artists? Elaine?
I'm definitely a maker.
Why?
I take the clay, take a lump of clay, and something grows out of it. I don't do the sketching and the sort of research. I just want to feel the clay and find something grows out of it. I'm a maker.
Interesting. Rosa?
I see myself as an artist. I think what it is that when I make something, I want to tell a story with it. So when I started up, I think everybody does sort of a cup, and I do a bowl, and I do a jug. But I never really found the satisfaction in doing that. I think what I want to do is, like when I do my female shape, I see sort of ladies standing talking together, or I see the water swirling up on the stones in the beach, and I want to tell that story in a contest. I love lining up the pots and seeing them communicate together as a picture or a sculpture. So that's how I see it. I never make, they're similar, but they're of course never the same. But I don't mind they're wobbly, and I don't mind the necks are not straight, because they're little people and they tell their little story themselves.
Yes.
And I'm not perfect, and my pots are not perfect, and it's okay.
Yeah,
We are all
it's
lovely
human.
as we are, so it's okay with me.
Peter, what about you?
I'm an artist because I've spent my life being labelled as a maker or a designer, or done everything for everybody else accurately. Even with commissions, I always, you know, when people say, "Well, we want to make this," I always say, "But it will have my interpretation of it." When I get that piece of clay, whether I'm slab rolling or hand building or I'm throwing, I always start off with a plan, a very, very clear plan. But the great thing about clay is that I have the opportunity to change it.
Right.
And I don't always get it right, but I love the feel. I love, you know, I make violins in clay. They're not violins, they're pieces of sculpture. And I love making them because the shape is it's a form of ornament, and it has that delicacy. But I change it as I go along. I'll cut holes in it and change it. But sort of doing a cubist style or
Fantastic.
add something.
Yes. Yes.
And then people say, "What's a funny violin?" And I go, "Well, it's not a violin. That's why it's a piece of clay." I get that.
This is fantastic. Thank you so much for allowing us to come, Rosa, into your studio, and for being able to bring you together. It's been so exhilarating for me, and I think will be of enormous interest to the rest of the membership. So thank you very much.